And I don't.
You're in the red seat, camera can't see it. So
It's
only if you're on fire before.
I'm trying to drive people nuts. So I had the commission meeting the whole time too. I just way back and forth.
Nope, I haven't.
Well, this
Last-
sister might get it.
Oh, yeah, if not, I won't write out mine, and then he can have that one. Okay, good.
O2, the coach is the machine.
Okay, thank you.
I've never seen.
Okay.
You're up and running.
You are recording? Yes.
Yes.
Great. 4:01, Parking Advisory Committee called to order. We are gonna start with our roll call of committee members first. Seth. Instructions.
Seth Brandenberger, Business Improvement District Representative.
Sandy Scholl, business rep.
Julia Gustafson, property owner. Now we'll do staff.
Bruce Goulet, Transportation Deputy Director.
David Kanopke, Transportation Systems Director.
All right, and yes, let's just do intros at the time. Want to start? Abigail Dolan, Program Manager for VA.
Hi, I'm Alicia Ryan, Executive Director of Business Improvement District.
Callie Asham, Helena Area Chamber of Commerce.
And Andrea Opitz, Executive Director, Tourism Business Improvement District.
Let's welcome everyone.
Oh, we got all
Everybody
All
got
four
it.
is here
We got the trifecta. Christopher, our other board member, should be here today, but we have a quorum of 3 and we know, or we think that Joan was traveling this week. But we're good with the quorum. So next agenda item, announcements and housekeeping. So this is my regular reminder on the housekeeping that we will try to talk about one agenda item at a time, waiting for staff to finish their presentation before we cover them with questions. And we have public comment at the top. I will probably open up public comment again throughout on specific things, especially for those of you that might need to leave. Okay, now announcements. Any announcements from committee members related to parking or things they've heard on the street? Literally.
The parking. Machine across from the. The PID is will not accept credit card. It's good.
Thank you. I do not have announcements. Next one, minutes. So we have our minutes from May 15th. Thank you, Sandy, for drafting those. Hope we've all had a chance to look at them. I mean, Alex said they're okay. And then if we didn't, I forgot to look back at my comments, but I think that was fine. You know, the first part, but the meat was in there.
Yeah.
Any discussion on our minutes from the May 15th meeting? Anybody want to move to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the May 15, 2025 minutes.
Perfect. Is there a second? Sandy seconds.
I think we have to second though. This is my minutes.
Uh,
I'll second the minutes.
move in second, but you can second.
I can second, yes.
Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, let's vote. All in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
You have to say one by one, they said no.
Well, you can count us.
Okay, I'm just telling you what they told me.
Okay, but I'll do a roll call. Seth.
Aye.
There we go. Sandy.
Aye,
And I vote aye. Minutes approved.
there we go. Okay, they said.
But see the
All
training, you are not thank you for taking that training. All right, now we're gonna move on to public comment for items that are not on the agenda.
I have a couple,
Yeah,
but I don't know if they apply to something else. The first is we're hearing a lot of feedback about customer service from residents and from visitors, that they're not being treated very nicely. I have heard firsthand sometimes how people approach the staff, and so I understand the resistance to be kind sometimes, but I think that often if you're coming in from a different part of town or if you're coming in from out of town, the staff might be your only like interaction with the downtown,
Staffing.
like parking staff.
Mhm.
Yeah, and so, I don't know if there is an opportunity. I'd be happy to do, customer service training. I did that for 20 years, happy to help. And do a customer service training for staff, or they could take part in our super fun frontline training that the Tourism Alliance does, that's where they could learn more about Helena and things to be here. I think we're really at this really cool turning point where we're starting to see a lot of activity downtown, and we're hearing a lot of how great downtown is. And I just think it's one more opportunity that alleviates some of the businesses from some of that pain. You know, if you do a really great job in a business and you've treated someone really well and they come out and they have a parking ticket, and they shouldn't handle it that way either, but we should never match someone's anger, because that's not what we're supposed to be doing. So that would be the one thing, and happy to help in any way we can. And then just on that same track is that we're really looking at focusing on continuing the promotion of downtown and being really positive about the things that are happening downtown. We were recently at a state tourism conference, and one of the things that really was a takeaway from there is how we are really positioned well as compared to our competitor cities. And speaking with a few folks from other towns, they aren't seeing the kind of activity we're seeing, particularly in our downtown area. They're not seeing the growth that we're seeing, and they're not seeing some of the positive things that are coming out. They've really sort of ground to a halt when it comes to economic development and visitation. And so I think we are poised really well. And so getting more positive news out. So if there's anything that we can do to help promote downtown in a positive way, happy to do that. And then one of the things that I was able to touch base with David this week was a sign project for the parking garages. One of the comments that we've gotten from visitation is that the parking garages are looking a little dowdy in a nice way. And so we want to help do that. So we're going to work with David to come up with a sign package. We'll probably present to the BID to help with funding for that, to get the signs printed. We know that transportation has a budget issue at the end of the year, so we want to make sure we're helping and being good partners. So we'll be talking to the BID and our tourism partners about helping pay for that. But I definitely think if you haven't been in the parking garage, you definitely walk through there. We have a signage problem, and we have a lot of conferences happening this summer, and the demographic is a group that will need some additional help finding a kiosk and using a kiosk. So we were able to work with a hotel partner on an issue that came up this week, but just want to make sure we're being good partners overall.
Yeah, and I would echo, I mean, that parking garage that we talked about is, sure, yeah.
Is that your full comment?
I'm done commenting.
Sorry, I want to try to be honest.
Yes, yes.
Take it away.
Just echoing what Callie said, looking at the parking garage, that was brought to our attention is the one, behind, well, 6th Avenue and Park. And so, certainly one of the closest ones to the pedestrian walking mall. I think there was a short-term fix for this week prior to a big race coming, the Governor's Cup being here this week. But just want to make sure, that we are being good ambassadors and looking welcoming. I think that we can definitely enhance, those parking garages. And then I would just say to that end, I think the other thing that we can do more effectively is play a more of a proactive role. So we at Visit Helena have added some information to the homepage of our website about, which has needed to happen for a long time, about come experience downtown, and then adding parking information to that. We'll add the updated parking map, but so trying to give folks, and when I say visitors, that doesn't just mean visitors outside of 50 miles. I think that could be anybody that's not normally downtown, whether that's Montana City, the Helena Valley, whatever. They're all guests in downtown. And so we want to make sure that we are just being proactive and sharing that information early and often. So there's just making it as simple as possible, so.
Thank you for your comment. Do you want to?
Just real quickly, heard it, Alicia Ryan, BID. We just heard at our last board meeting and observed with our own eyeballs that the weeds down in some of the parking areas are really, make the place look a little rough. And we were hoping for some, maintenance or help with getting the weeds under control.
Thank you for your comment.
Abigail Nolan, BIG. I'm doing this right this time. I have a few things. One, I want to echo Seth. He mentioned the lot 3 parking machine. It goes down once a week. It is become very annoying because we have to rush out there to help people with their parking. Oftentimes the credit card doesn't work and the coin doesn't work. And then when we say get the app, a lot of people do not have the app or do not have a smartphone because it's an older demographic. So the lot kiosk needs to be working. We've also witnessed the parking attendants still giving tickets to the people in that lot, even though the machine's not working and the person will be at that machine struggling and the parking attendant is writing them a ticket, which leads into the parking attendants were marketed as ambassadors of Helena, and I do not believe that they are ambassadors of Helena. I've lived and worked downtown for about 10 years now, and the parking people, we used to have a good relationship. There was a gentleman that I would trade a pie with, or if he came in and flagged me down to pay my parking. We had a really good relationship. We had relationships with everyone. They said hi when I was working. This is not the case anymore. They don't say hi. They do not talk to anyone, and they're very rude. I have tried talking to them several times when we had a permit and there was an issue in the system. And they're like, you gotta talk to the front office. And there was just no conversation and there was no leeway. There's no conversation or nice. And it's just, it is sometimes the only interaction, as Callie says, to a downtown person. So we want to make that positive and we want to help them be a little bit more positive. I do understand they might get yelled at every single day, and that is a really hard job to do. However, to be met when I'm trying to be understanding, to be met with that hostility is just not great. So, that the landscaping is, I think, if possible, to look into hiring a real landscape artist or landscape person, I don't know what they're called, groundskeeper. Our bushes on lot 3 got trimmed, but I would argue that it looks worse than what we started. And they just left the roots there and the trash there. So BIG ended up cleaning up all the trash that was left in the bushes. So they trimmed the bushes down to the roots and left the roots and the trash. So we did collect the trash to make it look a little less trashy, but it's still not looking great. So it could get assistance in that matter and the weeds that could be on that. We also had a veterans group call about their they called the parking division to ask if there was any discounted parking and was told no, so rudely that they called us. And we echoed, because we've tried to be good partners, that there's no discounted parking for veterans, but we'd be willing to help them out, like trying to find avenues on working with the hotel that they're staying in. We connected them with Andrea and Kelly, like there's other avenues. However, that was just another comment of staff being rude to people that called for information. The other one is, my last comment is the map. I had a colorblind friend point out to me that the parking map is hard to read. So in the new printing of the maps, if you could get them There's a really cool website that you can find colors that are easier for colorblind. And that is all.
Thank you for your comments. All right. Yeah, thank you all for your acquisition. We move on to updates from citizen. Speaking of map and communications, let's just dive right into the map. Do you want to do you have a image to put?
We have the image that we, that we edited last time
We haven't gotten anything back
from, from Alpha Graphics. So this is the one that but in our conversation, lending to,
Just start at the beginning about map. The Alpha Graphics is doing it.
so Alpha, Allegra originally, and now Alpha Graphics was who printed this map originally. So we were able to get approved from them. We went through this, changed some things up, but in our last meeting, we had discussed having two different maps. One that showed just public parking, so that could be on more of the chamber site, and then a map for where the permit parking is, so that would be more for the locals who are looking to buy permits. Obviously, we don't need to confuse the public parking with permit parking, because our tourist folks aren't looking to buy a permit for a day. So once we get basically the proof back, because we just sent this off, we'll divide up that, which should make it easier to ship out for Abigail's friend that's colorblind, to delineate those areas easier, because it won't be as busy. So that's the update on that.
Pause, please. Okay, so map update. I'm just gonna open it because we have a vested interest group here. I'm gonna open up to a second round of public comment on the map. Carly,
Yes, I'm
public
ready.
comment on the map.
Can we please add a QR code to download the app from the map?
That's what the passport.
It will be a QR code. Okay, perfect. Thank you. That's all I.
Except for,
I'm done talking to you.
the address is the old cruise address.
Right, this was the
Oh,
maps
the
that
one.
got printed when they were there.
It's for the local.
This one is, I sent, the one I sent actually has the new City of Helena logo, the new address, the new phone number, the actual Helena parking email address. The passport, where this passport logo is, the QR code.
That's awesome.
We added the capital.
I was so grateful, can I just say that, it was.
I couldn't find anything that looked as gothic or cartoonish as
I
this
like
map. So
I was-
they're gonna have to do their magic at Alpha Graphics.
Eternally
I'm an
grateful.
engineer and I do 90-degree angles. I don't do
The,
creative.
Wait, yeah, can you just leave that up forward time?
could you label the city county building as like parking office also? Because what I have learned in the last little bit is that a lot of people do not know where the city county building is. Even with the address up there, it's bonkers, yeah, and so when we say city county, everyone like stares at us, but if you put like parentheses parking. Like behind that or something, maybe that would help. And then, is there any opportunity to change the address on the tickets? Because we have had a significant amount of angry people this week who don't know what city county building is and are coming to our office to pay their tickets. Because on the yellow slip, it's our address though.
No.
Because I'm assuming you probably have 7 million of those,
Yeah.
but could we just like make a label and,
Your personal address, right?
yeah, send it to my house. They'll really be pissed when they get up there.
And sorry, I went on over committee members, I should have asked.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
I was really excited about raising that hand.
Yeah, Seth or Sandy, do you have comments on the map? And I'll reopen it.
We talked about making it a little bit more, not so 3D, but we're gonna keep it 3D.
This
Well, the public one will probably be a little bit more zoomed into the downtown of where the parking is, along with the
landmarks.
Yeah, the landmarks, like, you know, the 8.83 miles to.
Well, you brought up the, I think about it looks like it's only a block away from the Capitol.
So that's one thing that we asked on Alpha Graphics, if we
Mhm.
can make it look a little bit more spatially correct. Is would be the correct terminology. But then the downtown, the permit would definitely be a lot more zoomed into just those, the boundaries of where those permitted areas would be. Because we don't need to show them where the capital is, because they should know where they're coming from and going to. The kind of landmarks, I think we thought was more for the public parking and tourists and people out here around here.
So comments on that?
No comments at this point. Yeah, I think.
But one more on the, I think blue-green is the main color, the blue and green is the main color blind problem. What they can't see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll do, what we'll do is,
Okay.
we won't run it, we'll run it through actually the ADA site that shows what is the best for that.
My comment is just that I'm very excited about this. Thank you for doing this and hearing the feedback from our partners on this. I'll move it back over to public comment. Did you two have anything to add on that? Okay.
Thank
QR
you
code
for
was-
doing this.
Yeah, QR code. Oh, Andrea, yeah, you got it.
One more, so the kiosks still accept cash, coins and the gold piece, right?
Mhm.
Is there an I don't, without making it too confusing. To say that, just thinking again about people that maybe don't wanna download the app, that they don't actually need to.
So the idea for the public facing one, that for people that are less familiar with the area, it's just gonna have the top piece, you know, pay to park, $1 an hour, you know,
I see,
everywhere, you know, use the passport app, coin card or whatever. It'll just be a
Got
very
it,
brief.
it's already on the
statement.
sign,
It'll be
okay,
a very brief statement of what's accepted and where.
perfect.
You guys, question.
Yeah.
I thought we were no longer selling goldies, or,
We're no longer selling, but they're accepted in kiosks.
okay.
I have an update on that.
Let's move on from that.
So
Do you have more on that?
we,
Oh, yes, sorry. I have-
we won't
Yes, thank-
finalize and print these until we've passed or not passed rates with the commission. Because I'm not gonna print them with a rate on and then have to go print them again with a new rate if it gets approved. So,
We'll be able to have a digital copy of it until the
Mhm.
rates are done, but we won't print any until rates are.
So, yeah, we not wanna print them until the rates are finalized, but digital version could get. That's a good question. No, we're swinging into that, sorry, which I'm trying.
Yeah,
not
I
to
do. I'll email it.
Then let's move
I have a
to,
request for-
oh yeah,
Can we,
I can.
can we request that these folks proof it before us and all, I mean, that they are also in the approving process?
You can make that request, I mean.
Just, you know, when you're ready to proof it, just so we can look at.
So what I'll do is I will endeavor to get it out to them in enough time for them to approve it.
Good.
But not anything against Cali or anyone, but if they don't get us comments back, we're not waiting.
Right.
to Call somebody.
Yeah.
I would just
Very
like,
fair.
these guys that are dealing with math all the time. Thank you.
Alright, let's talk about the second flyer, which would be the permit rate. Do you have anything on that?
No, just that we're working on that, kind of waiting on seeing what the discussion on the rates, lends to. But I think communications updates probably the best spot for my other item that I have.
Okay, keep going.
So merchant accounts are active. I was going to send this to Callie and, after we met, but I wanted to make sure that we talked about it before, with the committee before. So the merchant accounts are active on for City of Helena Passport. We will send out the information on how to activate those, if any merchant would like them. So what they are is just basically a merchant account that's a $50 minimum that they have to put on there. And then they generate the codes and they can give those codes to whoever they want. And every time that code is used, it'll ding that, basically that balance. And then the merchants can set up an auto renewal if their fund falls below $50, then it automatically gets charged, another $50 or whatever. There's a few options. I'm not saying that there's a plethora of options in there, but it's a way for, like we heard, Cam Riggs' wife wanted some way to help her clients. This is the easiest way that we found right now, but there's another, the Passport wallet is also coming out in the near future. So there will be other options out there, but the first one to roll out is this merchant account.
You have to use the codes through the app.
Yes,
Oh, not on a kiosk.
because the kiosks are run through Flowbird.
Okay.
So let me just clarify for the, say, so merchant account, which I've not really heard that before. It's basically getting, basically it's a card that gives them a bank. And you give their customers
You would set up it would be like you said.
An online account.
online account, but I could give it to any of my customers, so.
You could create a code for any of your customers. You give them, you choose the code, you make whatever code you want.
Yeah.
You tell them the code, they can use the app to put that code in to get the parking that you paid for.
So is it the same code each time? or
You can
you-
make it,
It can be.
yeah.
Or
What if
you-
I-
Run out of money real quick.
It can't be the same code, or you could make 20 different codes.
Okay.
It's up to the merchant on how they want to basically kind of distribute those funds that they're putting in that merchant.
And who do you see as the end user? This is aimed for which end user?
It's for the customer.
Your customers.
It would be a Goldie coin replacement.
Right.
So like
That's the-
shop and then give
That
you
makes sense.
do a code that you can use. Or, I mean, I imagine you could also use it with employees to pay by the hour. That would be expensive, but you could do it that way.
But if I get that one person has two codes, same code in the lot, at the same time, the second person's gonna get a ticket.
No, because the
No.
code is just entered by a license.
Okay. So I was thinking of,
So you could give Seth and Julia the same code, but when they enter the information on their app, they have to be associated with license plate to make sure that they have parking privileges. So Seth's license plate and Julia's license plate
Okay.
would just get paid for by that.
so that might really help that issue with the.
I think it's most likely it's gonna be used by employees. But it does require you to have the app.
So the biggest people that typically ask about it are the professional offices, lawyers, doctors, clinics.
Well, in theory, as you check in, the receptionist can do that for you.
Correct.
Right.
The receptionist give you a code, you just,
So that's what a lot of them.
bring in
do
your
now.
license plate number, we'll pay you for it.
Wait, cross that, Chris is not done.
So a lot of them do, that's what a lot of them do now. They basically have a bowl full of goldies on their reception desk. People come in, they hand them a couple of goldies, they go out and put them in the kiosk and pay for the time. The difference now is that they can come in and they don't have to go back out and plug goldies into the kiosk. They can have the app, the receptionist could generate a code for them. They put the code in and their parking is paid, they didn't have to go back outside.
Okay. The other thing is the receptionist can enter the license plate and pay with their own app, correct?
That part's a little bit more unclear right now. We kind of asked that question, we haven't quite gotten an answer. I was hoping that within the merchant account, you could just go say, this is the license plate and go on putting time for. Didn't quite sound like it was that versatile. Whether or not the business could have the app, like on a business cell phone in the office at the desk. They have the app and they just go put a license plate in and apply a code for the person. We're not sure how that would work, cause. You know, when you have your account on the app, you have your account, you have to have your whatever card associated, your name, all that kind of stuff, right? So. It may still require the end user to have the app themselves to use the code. But we will learn more if we can.
So there's like the Passport wallet. It has different functionality than the merchant account. So. We're hoping that one of these options that are gonna be rolling out as soon as we can get them turned on to our account and everything like that. Will have the functionality that will suit hopefully people as much as they can. We're limited by what the, Passport company as a whole has. But we're trying to get all the functionality turned on as quickly as possible without kind of flooding and making it too confusing.
So the nice thing about the wallet, right, so the merchant account idea, that's for business owners, whoever, to be able to supply parking to their customers and employees. The wallet is more for the individual person, and so if you're a heavy user of the app, when you go downtown and pay for your parking, you can, instead of just having your card associated with the app and paying, $1 or $2 every time you want to park, you can load your wallet with $40 and just eat away at that $40. And then the same idea, it can reload automatically, or you go put in more. The biggest feature that I liked about the wallet was that 15-cent transaction that they charge only comes out when you load the wallet. So you can eat away at your $40 without paying the 15 cents every time to pay for your parking.
Is that a separate app or it's
It'll be within the app.
within the app?
Yeah.
Okay. I have a follow-up question. Will you guys did you say this is live or it's coming live?
Merchant account is live.
Merchant account
We
is
will
live.
send out the information to the BID and the chamber.
Great.
And they can distribute it to their members. It's just a Passport 4 or 5 page thing. Has pictures, has text.
Passport has created a guide for it.
yeah.
Great.
It's a guide on how to set up your account, what's the needed, and it just walks you through that. So we'll send that out to them tomorrow. And they can get that out to their members. We'll put it up on the website as part of an update. But the wallet and everything is still yet to come.
Other questions from community members on this item?
I would just. As soon as you have that information as to whether or not a receptionist or somebody in the business can enter a license plate for the customer. It just seems to me that would be the most useful. Part of the, people are in a hurry. It's the frustration of using the kiosk or the app. It's not. A lot of times it's not paying the $1 an hour.
Piggyback on your question, is there like a kiosk version of the app that you can have without being a personal app? I think it's like, could a business have an iPad that acts like the kiosk?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Sandy,
Can I get like a card, like a credit card or whatever that I can load and I can just use it in the kiosk without having to use the app?
I mean,
It's like instead of quarters.
you should be able to, buy like a prepaid Visa card. and it would-
But nothing-
Just like any other.
Just
any
other-
other part. We don't have anything
Okay.
that you can buy like that, that's.
okay. Christopher, thank you for joining us to tell you where we are in our agenda. We are on item 6, communications update, and we're talking about new features to the Passport app. I think next we're going to talk about any updates to the website.
So the website, we're just the couple of things that we talked about, and then the merchant stuff will be we'll try to get a PIO to do something to draw attention to that so that it's, like new thing type.
We're trying to get them to make it less clicks. Well, you know, there's clicks on some of those stuff to get you, so. Trying to get more stuff front and center.
On, that clarify for fewer clicks through what,
The
what
website.
website in general?
On the, well, so like on the parking page specifically, like if you try to go get to the rate sheet, you click the parking page
Okay.
and then you click the rate sheet and then you have to go then get the rate sheet a
PDF.
second time.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on for time. Let's talk about usage and enforcement numbers from last month.
Your whole thing.
So, I don't have from the last month, and this one, those slides are more about the rate conversation, but.
We can move on if you want to wait, talk about rates.
Yeah,
So you don't
'cause
have to use them?
I thought that was the bigger item that we
Yeah,
wanted to
great.
discuss rather than.
We kind of just had that
as.
as a standing item to check in. So if we're talking about it later, that's fine. Let's talk about the meter replacements, the lollipops going away.
So they're still moving along. They were waiting on some of the skins and signs, some materials before they continue to remove them because they ran out faster than the materials been coming in. And then we're down one maintenance guy right now and just out with some personal time. So we're down to just the one maintenance person that's gonna be doing that. So we're trying to find some extra help to get out there to give that one a hand, just so she's covering everything.
So time estimate, July?
I think we're hopefully still trying on schedule for the first part of July, so.
To have all the meters out, okay. Then let's move on to, oh yeah, this is a good one. TIF, what did you guys do?
What did we do?
Have you done anything on TIF?
So I
Okay, let me pause, that was a break,
That was
that was a big
outburst.
transition,
I
okay.
was trying to answer.
I know. For the public at large, at the last meeting, the committee voted to empower you guys to apply for TIP funding. I got a little stuck in process if then that needs to go to Tim and come back down, but we are in support of a TIP application. Now, David, please take the floor on what's happened since. the last
So,
meeting.
I gave the community development director, as he had requested, what we may be asking for.
Okay.
Haven't heard anything official on the request, but maybe we just apply and we go from there because it will come in front of the commission at some point anyways. And that TIF for everybody that was not here was to do ADA and basically beautification around the parking structure and lots and stuff like that.
Landscaping. ADA improvements, wayfinding and pedestrian access were the four things that we said would be a great fit and up to $500,000. Okay, so 500,000 is the number you gave community development.
Yes.
Okay, so I know they're kind of in a placeholder, like getting numbers from all the different agencies. Okay,
Okay, so,
were you done? I interrupted you. Okay, Seth.
so you talk to the community development and that's always the first step that hangs a lot of people up. So what,
The next step is to do the application.
okay. And they're on, they know you're gonna do that or where, okay. Okay,
Clarification, your department does the application. Or you, I put you down?
Somebody will, I delegate that.
Do we have, I know the TIP board is still getting filled out, that hasn't started meeting yet. But has community development set any kind of deadlines for applications or review periods, or it's still rolling?
Still rolling,
Still
but
mostly, I know they just did some awards recently, so, and they were, I think, pretty enthusiastic about starting to get applications specifically in the downtown, so.
Christopher, any questions about TIP?
No.
Alright, so, wait, I'm gonna ask it again, even though you kind of said it, so transportation is on it for an application, will you be? This is kind of new process, will you be bringing that application to this committee before you submit it? Do you see that as part of the timeline, do you
It
want to
depends on
discuss it?
timeline.
Okay,
We already have direction from the committee
Yeah.
to submit 4 or 500 for those 4 things. and
Yeah.
That's all we would do.
okay,
If they came back with something and said that something wasn't eligible, then we would just probably cross it off and just proceed with what was. But all those things are eligible downtown.
alright, more, I might just keep it on the update, so you. Yes, okay. Let's move on then to regular items, ooh, this is a good one. Residential parking districts, this is something we've talked about since we started.
ADA approved.
I know.
How
So
about
for
you
those
start
of
the
you
tip
who
application?
remember, or go, thank you guys, yeah, I'll email you.
Okay.
For those of you who checked your email, these are in your email if you wanna look at them. I know that sometimes it's hard to see them on the big screen.
You work really hard, so I had a hard time about
It's really hard. Okay, I'll try not to. David, please take it away on residential parking districts.
So I'm gonna preface this by some of these resolutions are old enough that the county clerk's office is still working on getting them, the original ones. Because part of that was. What did the district look like when they originated the district? Over the years, properties get subdivided, properties get aggregated, so they're created upon how many properties were adjacent to whatever street or district that they had requested. And when they're terminated, they are terminated on the basis that 50% or more of those properties don't want it anymore.
Oh.
So originally, the numbers that were given, we were tracking permit numbers and how many spaces were allocated to that district instead of, and that it is a flaw with the way the residential parking district is worded. Because it doesn't limit the amount of permits that you can sell to an individual house. And in reading back, I think these were intended for single family areas that were being impacted by, high school or something like that. Whereas I think because of the wording was maybe broad or not specific enough, we have districts that have multifamily or apartments, houses that then converted to apartments. So instead of, your potential 2 or 3 permits, now there's 10 permits coming out of one house. So if you look at it, there's not even enough parking spaces on street in the district to even cover some of those multifamily or commercial properties. So I think that that's just part of some house cleaning that we'll have to clarify with not only this committee, but the commission on what the intent of these residential parking districts is. Is it purely residential? Is it, how do we want to look at this? Most of the places that we looked into that did residential parking districts, it was just that. It was basically R1, R2, and
I mean, other communities.
yes. So back to this. So the green are the ones that are still active. They haven't been terminated.
You show this on the Zoom, just so see if I can.
Are the ones that are still basically either active or on our rolls. The yellow on the sides here are districts that either don't meet the current criteria, or they just didn't sell enough permits. So these ones would be the ones that we would send out letters per resolution 20071 and notify them that at an upcoming public meeting that their district is up for termination due to not meeting the criteria set forth by the commission, blah, blah, blah.
Pause, because I want to repeat that. So in that change of the residential districts, it was an annual thing that districts needed to sell 50% or 50% of the properties in the district needed to buy a permit for the district to maintain. So these yellow ones are out of compliance because they have not had 50%, and so their district could go away,
Or the district's gone away.
or it's already gone. So,
Yeah.
okay. Do you know how many are yellow?
6, 7, 8, 9. And then 2 that were terminated, but for some reason are still active.
And by active, what do you mean? Active in
They
the
still
system?
have
or
fines,
closed?
and their permits are still being sold.
Oh.
So I think in that case, because whatever snafu happened, that district would be said, we would send them out and say your district was officially terminated on this date. If you still want to continue with your district, we need to have at least 50% or more to say yes, and then we recreate the district. So
And which
Of the
district?
two that are purple, or of the two of all of these?
So in the past, I think they had the opportunity to get people to go buy permits. If that's the case, that's fine. Back when they did the one resolution, they purged out like half the districts that were on the rolls, because there just wasn't participation in the districts themselves. And looking at our survey results, it seemed to indicate that people wanted a revamp of what residential parking districts would be or could be, I guess. So I think that it'll be good to do the annual report like we're required to. And then, there's still a few on there, a handful that, we could re-engage and say, okay, you're active, because some of them are almost 100, there's like 1 or 2 of them that are almost 100% of properties have bought permits. So it's obviously something that's needed. And then ask them what in their mind, what would make residential parking districts better, because they're obviously the ones using it, the ones that are needing it.
Which one, let's talk about those real quick. Which ones are at 100%? Do you know off the top of your head?
Poulter, Dearborn. Stewart's a little misleading.
You're talking 2016 and 20, or 16 and 7. Not very many permits.
Right here.
Right, but this is the one to the left, the 16 and the 7, is that how many permits are sold?
That's the number of permits sold to properties, the number of property owners in the district. So like Jones, they bought 3 permits. There's only 1 property there, so it's a little misleading because it's 300%.
So the 16 permits on Holter
Right.
doesn't necessarily mean that all 12 properties have bought.
Means if you,
Oh.
okay.
It just means that a few households might buy 2, or there might be an apartment on that. Lawrence is a good one right here. Because
That's just right behind us, right?
the Remington apartments are included in that district,
Okay.
so
What about the residents like on 9th by the Capitol?
the one on 8th,
Or 8th or 8th is not good. Let me just, this includes all of them in the city, right?
yeah, where is it? Right here. So 7 out of 8 of those properties have permits.
So how about summarize their presentation for my minutes? What's the
We
best
can
way?
say David.
I gave an update on residential parking.
Yeah.
So, and as you see so part of the other conundrum that here's some, whatever. So Stewart, now you see this is why I didn't want to send it out.
Yeah, it's a lot.
2A and 2A. that's actually one district. But at some point in the past, the parking split the district up into two districts, which is not allowed by the resolution.
Okay.
So technically, this one property and the 6 properties is one, or sorry, these 12 properties are, or sorry, this one, the 6 properties, 1 and 6. There's 7 total properties on there. But only Jones House has bought permits. So what we would recommend on this one, because they were split, is we would, and they've done this in the past, where they've amended the original resolution to strike out like the Hauser properties and only keep the Stewart property. And the other issue that we have with Hauser and Park, so we're all right over there in that little area
That's Civic Center.
by the Civic Center. So Hauser is the east-west street. Park is the northwest, along with Getchell and Kessler. So if you look at the houses on Hauser, none of those front Hauser. They all front either Park or Getchell or Kessler. So the properties are basically being double counted. Because the Park, the 2B, the Park, Getchell and Kessler district has a total of 49 households in them. But 6 of those households are the ones also being double counted in Hauser. So again, some of those 6 might be part of that 18. And this is, we found a little housekeeping that we have to take care of, where the residential districts, not all of them have addresses associated with them. So we really need to, clean up the district so that it is the actual district that's by resolution, and then associate those properties with that district, but also, clean up the districts that may just need to be separated because half of the district is being used and the other half isn't being used.
So in the A and B, B means it's only for residents and their guests, so it's like permit only. And A means it's 2 hour
With a permit.
or a permit.
Yeah.
So like that example, they have 2, is kind of 2 overlapping.
Correct.
Yeah.
I think what happened in the past, just speculating, is the folks just tried to make whatever work. And didn't bother to maybe go back to the resolution that what the establishing resolution actually said. Is,
But you don't patrol these, do you?
yes,
No, they do. From 9 to 5,
8 to 5.
8 to 5.
So they were being ambassadors, but without regard to procedure.
Same one.
Hmm.
What do you mean?
So people probably came and asked for, I know we're in a resident permit, but could we also have 2 hour? Could we have whatever, right? They wanted some sort of mix of some things and some possibilities. And because they were trying to act as, okay, we're gonna try and appease and do what we can to help you get what you want. They focused solely on getting them what they wanted, but not through the right process.
Okay.
So the district amendments, if you will, like this one up here, you see there's 3 resolutions. The 9646 was the original one. They amended it in 11785, and then it was also amended again by resolution 2137. So it's not uncommon to reorganize the districts for those areas that are actually participating in, and then not, and then getting rid of the areas that don't seem to need it anymore. And a lot of these districts that came out that are the Dearborn, Poulter, Logan, or not Logan, Dearborn, or stem from the Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Let's pause to ask other questions about this spreadsheet. Or do you have a summary statement about the spreadsheet? Most I hear it's a mess, like the districts are a mess, not your spreadsheet.
I think the districts aren't being, the participation in most of the districts is low because the issues that brought about the residential district itself are now gone, or the neighborhood has changed, like Broadway, there's just, some that, like on the previous sheet, Highland is still a district, but the signs are gone for whatever reason. We don't have any record of why they took the signs down, but nobody has requested them to be put back up. And that was just that small little strip right before you went into, on the backside of the hospital, like the ambulance entrance. So I can only assume that before maybe they expanded some of the parking areas at St. Pete's, that some of the employees from St. Pete's was parking out there. But now that they have plenty of parking for their employees, so it's a moot point. It just didn't go through the official channels to be true. And that's all.
Okay, committee members, questions? About this piece, because you also have the map, or do you want to talk about the map right now?
The map was just,
supplemental.
the map was just, that showed where the districts had been. Where they, what we're seeing right now. The biggest thing on that map that you saw was some of these districts that were done back in 90. Where they are down here, 92. You see all these districts that they don't have a creating resolution. So we don't know. That's what we're trying to track down this stuff, but I think those were either created by the parking commission outside of before the process was done. So, but most of them have been terminated over the years just because they're not seeing Collard,
I
Delta,
see.
Flowery,
Yeah,
they were all.
Mansion district, yeah.
Yeah.
Seth,
Yeah, I think the spreadsheet kind of indicates what's going on out there, but what's the proposal to clean this up? How are you gonna do it?
First off, we're gonna take the ones that are not meeting the criteria set forth in that 20071 resolution, 50% or less participation. We'll do our due diligence, public notice, take it to the commission and go from there. And those that fall off will fall off. Those that don't will stay on. And then what's left, I think our next step is to kind of re-engage those people that are actually buying permits and send out maybe that survey with a few extra questions on there about how the districts can be modified, and just get some feedback, and then come back to this group and see what this group's thoughts are on.
So, I assume that's gonna happen right away.
Yeah.
okay, Sandy.
I guess I wonder, what is the purpose of a residential district if we have, Joan buying 300% in one and no one knowing about it in another district? Is this something we need to be offering? Or if so, it needs to be clearer of who gets to play with it. I mean, as in, is it per household, per car? I mean, it's just.
So, thank you, Sandy. I think the overhaul could be very in-depth, or just it could be just get rid of, I mean, I know we've talked about just get rid of residential districts, period, because they're not paying for themselves.
Yeah.
They cost $30 a year for us to patrol them Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. We don't write that many tickets. I mean, the Jones district on Stewart probably is the one that we write the most tickets on, just because of the impact of the civic center and people just not reading the signs during normal times. But some of the other ones, we brought one forward, 1100 Billings. They wanted to terminate the district. There was a kind of a discussion. We brought it back. Then in that meeting, the residents said, well, we have a proposal, we got it, we're gonna redo it, we'll get a hold of you. I've called them twice, I haven't heard back from them to try to resolve that district themselves. So I think there might be a need for residential districts, but under a different umbrella and different sideboards versus what I think the original intent with these back then, with people being impacted by like Blue Cross Blue Shield and the schools and something like that. But I think the amendments that they made to the original resolution in that 2000 or that 20071 resolution, where they restricted it, the new ones to R1, R2, and R3, where they restricted it that if you have off-street parking, that your district doesn't qualify. You have to have five or more people to create a district. You can't just have. So I think they paved the way to actually revamping the whole thing, but there was still so many districts on the books that they couldn't make a clean sweep at the time. But I think the intention was for residentials, people being impacted. And the other thing that they did put in there that was new was the impact had to be new. You couldn't move into, someplace that had an existing school and say, I want to close all the parking out to residential only because the school is inconvenience to me. The school was there. One of the issues, so I can see.
It just seems like a lot of work for not much anything. And maybe there's another solution we could come up with, like you could buy your own residential sign, put outside your door or something. Yeah, it just seems.
I
It needs to be clear, it needs to be smooth.
I think these things do have value. I think that the main thing is to clean it up, get rid of all the non-functioning districts. But you know what happens, and it changes over time, like the park building, when Blue Cross moved out, I used to work right down there, and I remember, it was just crazy, people moving cars around, and it was crazy. But, and in Missoula, the university, as the university grew, the student parking started encroaching further and further, and they had to keep revising. I just think we're never gonna, there's always gonna be a need. It's just keeping up with it. But it's obvious there's way too many districts that could be done away with.
Well, and it's not like that building's going away right now, that if someone fills that Blue Cross building, there's gonna be parking challenges,
Yeah.
so. Clean it up if we can.
Christopher, you cards.
A question to David is, what time frame are we looking at when you said that he'll be dissolving some of these? And you said it'll be right away, is that, or adding or removing signs? You said there's some districts that are missing signs?
There are some districts that the signs have been removed and
Okay.
nobody's contacted us to reinstall them. I'm assuming because the impact has evaporated,
Okay.
for lack of a better term.
The person moved.
The person moved, like I said, maybe the St. Pete's people didn't have parking and they were parking out in the residential, like, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and then that went away when there was more parking. Not quite sure, but there's districts that were kind of dissolved. I don't know if they just didn't know the process at that time, but they're just not there anymore.
So do the other districts have signs? Are they all the same?
Most of the districts have their signs that are appropriate.
So could we like reuse those signs?
Yeah.
I guess is my question. Okay.
Yeah, as long as they're not faded too much.
Oh, okay.
Some of these have been out there like
Perfect.
since mid-90s, so.
Okay.
So, probably within the next 4 to 6 weeks that we'll get it on the commission's agenda.
Okay.
I wanna meet with the city attorney. It doesn't really say in the resolution that we have to contact the people and let them know that the district's being dissolved, like in a letter.
Mhm.
But I think that's probably.
Especially if we haven't sold permits
Right.
in that area. I mean, who would we know? that-
There's
Yeah.
a few people that have bought permits in those
Okay.
areas that we would just, probably canvass. That just their neighbors didn't meet the threshold. But we would, talk to the city attorney, make sure that the process, whatever public process we needed to meet, is met by the resolution. And then bring it forward for commission action, and then the commission would take their action and
Perfect, thank you.
I know you had fun doing that. We did, we had fun.
Okay, I had a comment, I retrieved it. Oh, will you remind us the amount of revenue that comes from district permits, the whole parking budget?
$3,780.
$3,000 for residential permits. And, I mean, looking at the map, they're quite spread out, so do you have a sense on the time that it takes to monitor these? Like, is it a portion of one person's time, or?
So our vehicle.
Yeah.
Our LPR, which is now kind of more for our downtown area. Would be doing that. When we had more private lot enforcement, it was kind of, they just hit them as they went around and did the private lot. But most of our private lot, if not all of it, has just gone away. People. So now we're making special trips out to these districts to monitor them. And like the Billings one is specifically for the high school, so it's only when school is in session that we have to monitor it. The Civic Center, most of Jones issues are on the weekends or, in the evenings when people are parking there when they don't have permits. So some of these districts, the enforcement that they wish they had is outside the hours that we have.
Okay. So to summarize, it is a money losing operation for the city. But
Public service.
it's a public service that is. Okay, yeah, I won't summarize it then. Okay, thank you for that. Let's talk about rate changes and parking budget. Do you have a presentation for us?
We got a couple of slides.
Nice.
Are you moving to the actual next item
I am.
or the?
I'm gonna get your regular, oh,
Where-
did we have rate
Is-
changes for residential? I can remember.
Well, they're,
Or
I
do you wanna
lumped
talk?
them in with the rest of the. rate.
Okay, let's just move to 7B, to rate changes and parking budget.
Is this one?
Yeah.
Right, at 507.
Let me share this.
So I just have two slides. I broke it down to the hourly pay to park and the permit scenarios. So. The top part is kind of information from our dashboard that comes from the Passport software. So this is only 4 to 5 months worth of information. It's just since we've switched over to Passport as processing all of our hourly pay to park stuff. So if you kind of average it out for the year, essentially we'd have roughly about 100,000 sessions per year be paid in the hourly pay to park. That's on the street, in the lots, everywhere. The average time, 2 hours and 13 minutes. So for the most part, people are taking their 15 minutes free and they're paying for 2 hours. That's average cost just over $2, which makes sense since it's $1 an hour. And then so far this year to date, 100,000, so roughly $200,000 in a year as things exist now for the hourly pay part stuff. So,
Wait, say that again? What did you say?
so roughly about $200,000 in the,
Oh, this is only half the year. Got it,
Yeah.
sorry, thank you.
so a little, probably more like 250-ish, somewhere in there. So if I kind of ran through the two scenarios, so if we were to go to $1.25 an hour, then on average, we would get an extra 50 cents per session, because the average session is 2 hours. And would equate to about $50,000 a year if we had 100,000 sessions a year. We went to $1.50 an hour, about 100,000 a year in additional revenue. So. We had, I know I think we were hoping that some of the public commenters would be around because they had some comments to make about what they thought we should do, but yeah, I think our recommendation at the time that we presented the budget was based on some discussions we had with the committee, and it was $1.25 an hour. So kind of depends on where we want to go. So that's the hourly pay to park piece of it. And so if we want to talk permit park so that you get the full picture.
Yeah, give us the full
Before
picture
you-
first. Yeah.
Hang on 1 second. You wanna talk about the
Oh.
total session count?
Yeah, so the bottom two left pieces is the breakdown of the app, which is the blue, and credit cards used with like. So the darker color is the app. And orange is credit cards used at the kiosk. And so this is since we've transitioned over to Password, which was back in January, so from January to now. You can see, I mean, when it comes to paying for a session, 99.9% of, and what I guess I'm calling these are electronic sessions, right? So just not cash.
Yeah.
99.9% of electronic sessions are being done on the app. As opposed to using a credit card app. And then the revenue amount is just slightly less, so 99.85 done on the app. The other part done on with a physical card at the kiosk.
Okay, I need you to repeat this. So really only 1% of the sessions are being done with
Electronics,
electronics. What's the non-electronic session?
check, cash.
Cash.
Point.
Oh, so this doesn't show coin.
So no, this doesn't, so
Okay, so that's less shocking.
the
But
coin
if someone's
card,
using a credit card, they're using the app, they're not using the
No,
kiosk.
you can use a credit card at the kiosk, which is what Seth was talking about earlier, how the machine is not accepting credit.
But that's the
cards.
1%. Is
That's
this
the
credit?
0.1%.
0.1% is credit cards on the machine.
Yes.
Can you pull the data that is app versus, or how does that relate to cash?
So cash, we collect about once every 2 weeks from all of the kiosks.
Okay.
Comes out on average somewhere between $500 and $1,000 every 2 weeks worth of cash.
Is that included in your $100,000 or 99?
No, that's just electronic. Okay. So I mean, cash is another, at most $10,000 a year.
Okay.
Or sorry,
Okay.
20, about 20.
So people are not using the physical kiosk to pay for parking,
With cash.
or with credit card, if it's
Or with
only
credit.
1%,
Yeah, the majority of people are using the app.
Just what you want.
or they're getting frustrated with the kiosk and not paying.
I'm thinking our population is
Interesting.
having a hard time, is the cash person and the credit card person. They're the ones saying there isn't parking downtown, there isn't availability. They're probably our target market that's saying the most negative stuff.
And so the one, I guess, distinction between the two numbers, right? So the set number of sessions versus the amount of revenue. I mean, in my mind, makes sense that the credit cards at the kiosk, when it comes to revenue, is a higher percentage than the actual number of times somebody pays with the cards. Because if you think people that are using the app, a lot of them are gonna be a little more efficient in general, right? So they're using the app to quickly pay for their session, they're going, doing what they wanna do, and they're moving on. So the people that are taking the time to go to a kiosk and pay are more likely to stay a little longer. And so their sessions are more expensive, they're paying more for their session. Because they have the time to go to the machine, pay at the machine, they're not just trying to quickly run in and out.
Question. This is Christopher, which, I first of all, I didn't even know that these machines collected cash. And when you're using the kiosk for the credit card, do they charge a fee as well?
Yeah, so they charge us fees
Okay,
for having the ability to use a credit card. Yes.
So, but is the person, or is there a 15 or 20 cent, is that added on, or do they pay?
I don't think there's one if you use your physical card at the kiosk. There's the 15 cents per transaction on the app,
Okay,
which used to pass through, and I said this a little bit wrong when we talked about this one time, where I said I was paying an invoice for 15 cents, so I didn't think you were paying it. I was paying an invoice, but it was just passing through me. So I've eliminated that part. Now they just keep the 15 cents instead of sending it to me and then billing me for it. They just keep it now. So,
Oh, I see.
yeah. So we made that a little bit more efficient because there was no need for me to pay an invoice for that. But no, so I don't, when you physically use a card at the kiosk, I don't believe that the customer has
isn't it a surcharge?
fee,
Okay.
yeah.
And one follow-up question is, do we have, this is for 6 months currently this year, right? Do we have this data from last 6 months?
I might be able to get it from. So as far as the app piece goes, I could get that information.
Okay,
I would have to do some slicing and dicing of different databases to try and get anything before we switch. So right now, Passport is not only running the app, but they're also processing the credit card transactions for us at the kiosks.
Mhm.
So all of the information is available in Passport.
gotcha, you said this.
Prior to January, we had a different credit card processing company
Mm,
that was processed. So if you physically paid with a credit card at a kiosk, it was going through a different card processor. It wasn't Passport at the time.
Gotcha, okay,
So I might be able to get a comparison.
okay, just out of curiosity, since, I mean, we're talking about data to look at.
Yeah.
The changes we're making, so I'm just curious, the credit, yeah.
So typically our usage of the kiosks has not declined since the kiosks
only
have been in this. It's only been on kind of a steady rise, but we can try to find some of that data. Still retrieve it.
Has the usage of the app increased?
Yeah.
Yeah. Same.
So if I have an app, I don't need to be standing at the kiosk. I'm just running right by. So that should tell us where our problem is at the kiosk. So if you see someone at the kiosk who's pondering, wondering, still there by the time you walk up a half block, that's where PCOs could really use the ambassador piece. Where, someone's, if they're standing there long enough, they're having trouble or it's taking a while. Maybe there's a way, I'm guessing those are the people,
So they
non-passport
They do.
people.
do, and
But maybe BID could help with the ambassador from that.
So part of the issue is when we changed over to the LPR. We don't have a lot,
License
we don't
plate
have
reader.
the 3 PCOs walking around
Yeah.
all the time now. So they're driving by as the vehicle is collecting the information. So it has been some disconnect with that interaction with everybody downtown. So, but I mean, I'm not taking lightly the customer service comments that we had.
Right.
We will address those, but I think the parking, the PCOs of old where they were always down, always on foot, always walking around isn't the case as much anymore. And that's where we're hoping to find some efficiencies with the LPR, where we lose some of that customer interaction because we're not on the streets. But we're trying to find some efficiencies so we can just, try to keep the cost down as much as possible.
yeah. So and not, again, not to discount the customer service piece, because I agree. So we had a scenario the other day, someone came in and talked to me about an interaction she had with one of the PCOs. And I agreed the interaction it could have been handled better by our PCO as well as the lady that came. But to put it a little bit bluntly, to Abigail's comment earlier, the exchanging of pies for parking is the reason that parking had no money. And we've been very clear from our level down to our PCOs that we want them to be cordial, we want them to be polite, we want them to be helpful to the extent that they can be. But we can't afford to be, no, that's okay, I get it, you're here now, I'll void the ticket for you because you're back to your car. Things like that in the past where they were so, okay, nope, I'll take care of that, we'll get rid of it, it's fine. That's the reason that parking has no money. And we can't continue that way, so. We've taken the authority for the PCOs to void tickets. To make those decisions out in the field away. That's why we have.
That's key information to know, okay.
Well,
So, but yeah, that wasn't entirely 100% us. The appeal process came up during an audit with the city's audit.
Okay.
And the auditor saying, well, I have this ticket right here that says there's $25. Where is it? Oh, it was voided. Well, so basically birth to death.
Yeah.
They want to know where's the appeal? Where's the official documentation that you appealed? Oh, well, that was just done in the field because, what this, that, or the other thing, or it was done at the window or whatever. So the auditors are requiring us to show basically the birth to death of the ticket. So we have to go through the online appeal. And then the appeal gets looked at by our superintendent or our operations coordinator. And that determination gets determined if it's approved or denied. Part of I think some of the education stuff that we really need to get out there is people aren't reading the ticket. It says you must appeal by. There's a time limit that you can appeal these. And if it's outside 30 days, the system won't even let you submit an appeal.
Okay. Well,
Wait, I wanna actually bring us back in, because we're just looking at time, so we are starting to talk about appeals, which maybe we need to talk about more. Chris is presenting data on numbers, is your question on numbers, rates, or is it about appeals?
no, it's not on either.
Okay.
Here's what it's about. Is there a number on the kiosk that you can call if you're frustrated with the kiosk? Is there a number there that says,
There should be a number set.
okay,
should be on all.
all right.
Will anybody answer them?
Alright, I wanna keep us on topic here.
Okay, let's go to the
so
next
you
one.
presented the data, yeah,
That's hourly, that's the hourly scenario.
Okay.
So if we go $1.25, maybe an extra 50, go to $1.50, maybe an extra 100. So this is the permit view, and so I tried to kind of give you guys the breakdown, because I know we kind of talked about some of these and given a little bit of numbers, but this is directly out of the system, so. We have the different cycle that we have, so either an annual permit or a monthly permit. The one on the bottom that just says annual, those are the residential permits. So they only get an annual cycle and that's it. And we're trying to transition those to the fiscal cycle, but it's a lot of effort for that permit if we're not sure that a lot of them are gonna stick around anyway. So roughly 1,900 permits in total. This does not include any of like the construction loading zone, the
Miscellaneous permits.
the small time.
Individual 19,000.
1,900.
1,900.
About 1,900 permits, a little more, give or take. Between garages, lots and on street and residential. So. Garages, there's about 1,150 total permits. 858 of those are annual, 296 are monthly. A $5 per month increase on garage permits would be about $60,000 a year. So the reason I break the annual and the monthlies out is because the annuals automatically get a 5% discount. So a $5 a month increase is more like a $4.75 a month increase. The monthlies, it's a little more complicated to come up with, because in order to get a discount on a monthly permit, you have to have at least 10 total. So I took an educated guess at how many of the monthlies would qualify for the discount. So the 60,000 is just that, it's about an estimate. Moving to lots, so there's about 470 almost lot permits. 325 annual, 143 monthly. $5 per month increase on those would generate roughly $25,000. On street, 176 permits. 119 annual, 57 monthly, about $8,000 a year if we did $5 a month on those.
So
Are
with that
any of
one,
those
one,
partial midday?
There's, so currently in the system, the only partial permits that we have are PM. There are no active AM or midday permits right now. I looked at
Remember
that
how many?
specifically.
remember how many PMs?
There's like a dozen.
Yeah, there's not that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, hold on, yeah.
there haven't been any. a couple of-
so and I left them out of this calculation specifically because I know
So they're not
raising the
included in
$30.
176?
Yeah, no, they're not.
Okay.
There's about a dozen of those, short-term permits. So for purposes of, I know that it was not a popular idea to raise those when we just created and kind of came up with that idea. So I just left them out of the calculation since there's only a few of them right now anyway. Residential, so 126, they're all annual, there's no choice. If we did a $5 a month increase on those, it's about $600 a year. If the residential districts went away completely, there's the $3,780 a year that they generate right now.
Yeah.
So all in all, a $5 a month increase across the board, we're looking at roughly $90,000 to $100,000 the permit side.
Will you remind me of the parking total annual budget?
About 2 million or so.
And this is increases. What do permit sales bring in? I mean, what do, without the increase? what
About-
is the revenues?
About 1.5, somewhere in there of the $2 million is from permits.
That's
From
before the
permit.
increase.
Yeah,
And then what is hourly?
and then hourly is about 3 to 4, somewhere in that range.
Okay,
100,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably like 250 to 3, honestly, because then the rest of it is ticket revenue.
So I'd say about
and then,
300 to 400.
All right.
So yeah, so about 1.5 on permits.
Right.
About, I'd say more realistically, 250,000 in hourly parking.
It's got us up confused. Also, millions.
And then the other 250-ish, 250,000-ish would be from tickets and other miscellaneous type revenues.
because expenses you are matching with revenue. And that's
Pretty
why we
much.
have so much deferred maintenance. We don't get any other city funds into parking unless we apply for them from other one-time sources.
So outside of our day-to-day operations, we have 40.
About 40 to 50. So starting, feels like dollar. So yeah, about 40 to 50,000 is what we can fit in the budget right now for addressing the deferred maintenance.
Yeah.
And the landscaping and the.
Yeah, so and then starting in the next budget year, we would have about another 80 because our final debt payment on Jackson falls off officially.
When does that fall off?
So the last one, it will be in August, the last payment will be in
So we won't
August
see
of
the
this year.
pretty clear until the FY 27.
Yeah, so the next, by next July, we'd be able to put that in the next budget.
Okay, well, that's helpful.
Okay. So, big picture, permits are paying the majority of the budget for parking. Hourly and tickets, because tickets, it's probably hard to say, tickets. They're not tied to permit, because it would probably be hourly violation, so 50,000. Trying to think about how to put those in my mind.
So
Like, they're kind of like one-time users, because if you're a regular user, you would have a permit or you would have figured it out.
So the tickets you're gonna see are gonna be probably drastically different now versus a year ago. Just because,
Drastic, how, oh, like increase in number of
yeah,
tickets.
well, and then the last couple of years. That parking, that we've taken the deep dive in parking is the trying to get those tickets paid. Because before, you could come and you could have 10 tickets on the books. Not necessarily an easy way to check how many tickets you might have, but you were issued a permit and or whatever. So now, when you go to buy a permit, you can't buy a permit if you have an outstanding ticket, so. You know, our ticket revenue might be up slightly, you know, this year and going into next, just because of some of those barriers, if you wanna call them that. So that might be up, but again, it's not gonna be significant.
And we're getting around a lot more efficiently with the license plate reader. So in the past, you have those people that may have had outstanding tickets that were just taking the chance to come down and quickly park and get in and out before the PCO had to walk around and find them.
Yeah.
And they may have had a bunch of tickets and they probably should have gotten booted,
Yeah.
right? Because they had so many tickets, and we're catching a lot more of those now, and so those people have to come in and pay their tickets because they got a boot put on their car or whatever the case may be. So yeah, we're seeing quite the uptick in the ticket revenue now.
You said 250?
About
So make sure.
To get up to 200.
Yeah.
So if it's 1.5 for permits, 250 from hourly, more or less than 250 for tickets, gets us to the 2-month road budget.
Yeah, here's the problem that I see, and that is, we've had about a year going to the standard $1 rate across the city. And now we're talking about just for pay-as-you-go parking, we're talking about a 25% increase. I'm really worried about it just being an open revolt, like what are we doing? We're trying to get. I'm really worried about it. I don't know how this is gonna go over at all.
You're saying with the increase to the hourly rates.
Right.
What about two permits?
That's even gonna be tougher. That's gonna be a tough sell. I mean, how much is your
Wait, I
revenue
wanna
going
make
up
sure
with
first.
this?
I was guilty of this. That we're talking about one thing at a time. So
Okay,
ask your
I'm
question
talking
to
about,
David.
okay, I'm talking about rate. Overall, how much is your budget gonna go up percentage wise with the rates that you've set up?
So the $5 a month increase, there's about $90,000 to $100,000.
What's the percentage of your income? That's just,
So we would see if we did $5 and we did 25 cents an hour.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
It's gonna be about 7%. Cause we'd be looking at somewhere around 130 to 150,000 out of 2 million.
okay,
So
so
less
that,
than 10%, right?
okay, now that sounds better.
Cause the percent increase is a good conversation to have. But it's a little different now because we have basically $40,000 to do deferred maintenance and all the other requests that we have because of our revenue and expense issue. Right now, we're trying to build in some of the rate increase to give parking a little bit of breathing room so that we can address wayfinding, we can address landscaping, we can address some of this other stuff. But, and we're not just looking to the ratepayers. We're gonna be looking at TIF funds. We're gonna be looking at some grants. But most of those grants and stuff like that have come with a match.
Yeah.
And if we use all our match, so one of our ideas to take a big chunk out of some of the maybe deferred maintenance for FY27 is when we free up that $90,000 payment for Jackson, is we just don't realize that as, extra money to do stuff. We take out a loan that the debt service for that loan would be that amount over the next, 10 or 15 years, and take that, say, $1 million that we got for a loan and address some of the stuff that needs to be addressed. But again, we're back to we can address some of the major stuff, but we still don't have a source of revenue coming in that we can count on to address the, ever building issues we have.
So maybe to help the percentage idea. So yes, 25% increase on that rate. But that revenue only makes up 7 to 10% of our total revenue. So 25% increase on a very small piece of the pie. It's only about a 6 to 7% increase on 75% of our revenue.
Yeah,
That didn't make it any better?
You could use the whiteboard to show it, but
well, no, I understand.
as long as you understand,
I understand.
The majority of our revenue source is only gonna see a 6 to 7%.
I understand that. It's just, I'm just talking about a public
Yep.
perception.
Yeah.
They're like, geez, I just got used to $1. Now they're raising it to 25%. And it's gonna be tough, and it's gonna be tough to sell this. I don't think that the general public and the business owners downtown really understand how dire things are as far as budget. That's the issue. They just think they ought to pay less.
Question,
Yes.
so, and maybe this is rehashed, is what is the public information campaign looking like? I know you've mentioned something in that, that line.
So we made this,
Or surveys.
for lack of a better term, pitch, right, at our budget presentation to the commission. They weren't necessarily completely in support of it, but there wasn't anybody that spoke against it on the commission. So they didn't say, yeah, that's a great idea, but they also didn't say, no, we're not interested in doing that.
But the caveat that we told them that what we were recommending, we're bringing to this group. And then this group would weigh in on our recommendation as well.
So they're waiting for. our
And you recommended
recommendation.
the increase, right?
You recommended both of these increases, permanent and hourly. Okay.
So as far as that goes, so as we get this feedback and we get a better idea of what direction to head with, sort of a campaign. Is how we'll start crafting that to start letting the public know that these increases are coming. There'll be at least 1 or 2 commission meetings that it'll be addressed at. It'll go, we have to probably an admin meeting to discuss in general. And then it would have to go to a regular commission meeting as a public hearing to be approved as rates. And then I think another important piece is the annual permits would not feel this increase until the next year.
Calendar year, which is
Right.
fiscal year.
No, fiscal year,
Oh,
because they're all on fiscal year now.
oh, okay.
And so we have to, those people have to pay for their next year of permits in the next couple of weeks. So that they're valid from July 1st to June 30th
Yeah.
next year.
So
So
fiscal year 27, these rates would go in for yearly.
for the annual permits,
Annual,
yeah.
yeah.
So monthly permits and the hourly would be the ones that really see the immediate impact.
Yeah.
Annual permits would
Lag a year.
be delayed by about a year just because of the timing for when they'll get.
And that would be every subsequent increases as well, because we moved everybody to the fiscal year. So that we could look at our revenue and expenses on a fiscal year cycle versus a calendar year. Cause having your money split up, half in one year and half in the other, it's really difficult to kind of see. And then we had some big accounts that were being paid in December. And so when we did it, we actually had a lull in one of the fiscal years because we had to catch basically back up.
I see.
Have you done any research on increase of enforcement hours or enforcement days? And what that would look like from a revenue standpoint? And how would you do that research?
So,
Yeah.
it's a good question. Yeah, as far as research goes, yes, we pulled some information from other cities. What do other cities, what are the hours they enforce? Yeah, how does that look? I don't know that we've necessarily talked to them about how does that affect their revenue? Is it worth it? Right? Does the extra enforcement time pay for itself, or hopefully more than itself? But something that we can continue to work for.
So some of the ones that I wrote down. It's so all over the board. So like. Bozeman, you're limited to 2-hour parking downtown. They have a whole rolling rule and everything like that. You go to Boise,
And it's 2 hours, 24/7.
correct,
Yeah, they don't have a enforcement time period.
Boise, you pay for, it's $2 for the first hour, $1.25. For the second hour, or sorry, $3 for the second hour, and it's a 2-hour max. They give 20 minutes free, so I don't even know how you work that in there, but whatever. But they enforce 8 AM to 8 PM. I think Billings enforcement is 6 or 8 too, if I remember right, but. Boulder. Has a.
Montana or Colorado?
Oh,
It's a joke, guys.
$1.75 for the first hour, and then hours 2 through 6, it's $1.25 per hour through those 6 hours. And then any hours 6 through 12, it's $15.99 for if you just parking there for 6 to 12 hours. And then if you park 3 PM through 3 AM, it's a flat rate of $3 for you to park there overnight.
Okay.
So
But 24-hour
we
enforcement.
somewhat, because I doubt that they're cruising their parking garages
Sure,
at
yeah.
2 o'clock in the morning, but. So, yeah. There, it's kind of all over the board, some areas do the top deck cheaper than the covered portions of a garage, which. I can see something there, but. So some of the ideas that I saw that were kind of interesting when I went through this is a fair bit of people gave you a discount on your parking tickets if you paid them, like I think this was Boise or Boulder. If you paid them within 2 days, you receive $10 off your ticket.
That's a good incentive.
That's a lot on the $10 ticket.
Yeah.
Well, but their tickets are like $25.
And also.
But overdue ticket. I mean, they get you, they're gonna give you a discount, but if you go overdue, like ours is a $5 overdue charge, theirs is $30.
Mhm.
So. The boot fine amount would go up very fast if you had a high overdue. $30, because we have $75 as bootable. So you had a $25 and you have an overdue, now you're at $55, you have basically 1 or 2 tickets and you're bootable.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, so, the other issue, or the other idea that we kind of put to the side was, going back to it costs you more to park on Last Chance than it does on Jackson, it does on the lots, or, and I just don't know how complicated it is to go back. I haven't heard a lot of complaints, but it just intuitively makes a heck of a lot more sense to me. That it costs more to park, in front of a business than,
I don't,
but
sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm concerned about our image and what we're gonna do. Right now, we have you know, merchants and businesses trying to make ends meet right now.
Yeah.
We're adding more money to them. They've seen nothing from us in a long time that says we fixed something, we care about it, we're trying to help you. We need to have it simplified enough that someone can explain it to a tourist, well, not tourists, I don't care. You know, yeah, tourist pay, you know, it's like, it's $1 an hour, anywhere downtown, it's $1 an hour. You gotta pay any kiosk, any dollar, done. And then what we say, I would propose, we look into like, what if we leave it as in and we say to the company, the public, we listen to you need employees, we now have part-time permits. We look at, you know, about beautification, we're working on this, we have a TIF grant. And spend this year saying, hey, we're not gonna change one more thing at this point, except we're gonna clean the garages, we're gonna do better signage, we're gonna work on customer service, we're gonna train customer, we're gonna go to the business owners and say, you gotta be on our side. You gotta promote parking down here. And when someone whines about it, you don't go, yeah, that's right. I've heard the PCOs also say, well, I can't fix a ticket anymore. This thing won't let me, versus they need another pitch. Like, I'm so sorry, you know, but if you pay this in 2 days, you get $5 off of it. You know, you could give them something like that to and then go back with the plan that we are gonna raise it next year, $5 and whatever, and say, look, for that year, we clean things up and by the way, you know, parking garages need maintenance. And all these maintenance, you know, you know, the conversation about bridges in the country. You know, that's becoming people's knowledge, but we have unknowns. I have fear of people saying, screw downtown, it's too hard. I'm gonna drive out and put my business on Custer, because it's just, you know, it's destination only anyway. I think we're at a really tippy line in a lot of spot. We're not as cool as Bozeman. You know, we don't have that population of people coming down in the evening. So, you know, they're coming down more, but you know, do you want to charge your customer more? I mean, our people are state employees. They work 8 to 5. They have that in their mindset, and then they have time to play. I say we kind of stick with that at this point. And if maybe next year we come back and say, yeah, we need to bump it because we are actually going to patrol it.
So that's all we're
Okay,
talking.
alright.
Yeah.
I haven't given my opinion. I've had some thoughts for a while, so I'm gonna circle back to.
How are we on time?
We've got 15
Well,
minutes and this is our last agenda item of meat. Unless you had more slides. I don't think you have more slides.
No.
I don't agree with everything you've said, Sandy. I do think that downtown Helena is not, and our guest today said that it's not on the edge, you know, it is growing, there is nightlife. People are coming downtown, they're using the app, obviously, to pay, and they're paying for parking. So I don't think it's quite as, I don't think we're losing users to downtown on parking alone. So I disagree with that as a
Well, yeah.
small business, but I want to get back to the overall budget of parking. That 3/4 of the budget is being paid for by permits. And 1/4 of it being paid for by hourly and tickets. And so really our permit users, our 9 to 5 professional offices and permit users are carrying the whole burden of this parking budget. And that I'm thinking about how do we get all the users, the weekend users that enjoy parking in the parking garage, the special events that happen at night, you know, how can we transfer a little bit of the burden onto all the users of downtown to help pay for the parking structures that get used, you know, more than 9 to 5 or 8 to 5 during the weekday. So that's where I'm keep going with enforcement hours and enforcement times to capture some more of those users. And I don't know, I mean, that's kind of an unanswerable question, like if you had to pay for parking on Saturdays, would that kill the farmer's market? I don't know. I think there is a little bit of people in cars are kind of like the gas, they'll fill the airport space, you know,
Yeah.
people will find parking eventually, whether or not they complain about it. So I'm hesitant. So if you're asking for feedback on the rate changes, I'm hesitant to keep increasing the permit parking, especially with these numbers. You know, it's $100-some thousand or less than $100,000 on the permit. I would feel like not increasing the permit over, even though I said the opposite a couple meetings ago, over the hourly. To think about who's using the parking and who's paying for it. Okay.
Can I just throw in something?
Yeah,
So if we stayed status quo. Come next budget cycle. With just the increased cost to. The city for health insurance and everything like that. That 40 grand that we have set aside now for capital projects. Is a good portion that's gonna get eaten up in just. Overall overhead costs.
Yeah.
And then we will have the Jackson piece coming up. But if hypothetically, if we use that for debt service so that we can put a bunch of $1 million into parking. Which isn't
still
gonna
could
go,
go very far,
it
yeah.
ain't gonna go very far. We're still back to the conundrum that we have no. Basically project money, and again. I don't have a great answer that doesn't put the burden back onto who's using it.
Mhm.
Because we just don't have any other funding mechanism. I'll tell you a couple public comments that I heard. Couple comments was that, they just don't wanna have the parking discussion anymore.
They who, what?
The-
No one
well,
wants to talk about parking?
people are okay with paying for parking, but every time we bring up parking, it just kind of stirs the pot, rips the scab off, and
Yeah.
we start the conversation all over again. One person brought up, well, why don't we just do a parking district, and everybody that lives in the city of Helena can pay, X dollars on the, assessment. Well, I pause for anything like that because the, bonds and everything that have, been on the ballots of late haven't passed because people are tapped out, and the reason that parking is in the situation that they are is because of we have more garages than most of the big cities. And we built garages to keep businesses downtown. But that was back when we could afford them. And now, like I said, we subsidize the state fund.
Yeah.
To the tune of almost $170,000 a year because of the way the agreement is read.
Yeah.
Or was written. We have debt service on 2 other garages, well, one other
Yeah.
garage, Jackson will come off. So, a lot of those were done. At the request of businesses or parking commission or BID or DHI or. The request had to come from somewhere, and at some point, somebody thought that they were a good idea. And I don't think the, outlook 30 years out, may not have been as accurate back then when they projected what, the realization of whatever. So it's just, it's difficult because we're trying to provide the service, but we just don't have the funding mechanism to enhance it or even keep it status quo. It's barely, eking by right now.
Well, there are 2 funding mechanisms that are that are pulling taxes from downtown property owners that aren't going to parking, that going to the BID and to TIF, and then their application base to get doled back out. What does that look like to make recommendation? Like, how does TIF get changed, or these special assessments? I mean, I think that's a commission level thing to change. And what's the timeline for changing special assessments?
6 months to a year.
I mean, does it make more sense for a recommendation that we say that we would, I have no idea what it looks like, I'm spitballing, but that TIF gets, instead of so much on TIF, that then there's a parking assessment for the downtown district and it goes to the parking budget. What does that look like in other committees?
They're a little
Too many
a little
rules on it.
different, is the,
No, I'm saying it in lieu of TIF, or like a chunk of, as a property owner, you pay these pools of money that go places. What if one of those pools of money was parking?
well, because then that would be a levy, which would have to go to a vote.
Yeah.
That would be, did TIF go to a vote?
It's
Sort of, so it's a little bit different.
sort of.
So the TIFs are created
That's
by
a,
the, but they are a part of the property tax process.
Yeah.
So
Cost more though.
it doesn't cost any, right?
No,
So
but
you're
it
paying
pulls
your
that
property
money
tax.
into a different place.
Right.
Instead of going to the city's general budget or going to a service dedicated to the downtown area.
Correct.
I mean, these are big physical, what's the word? Thank you.
But we are going after the TIF money.
Yeah.
We're trying,
So-
but,
so I
Take
mean-
care of us the first 2 years.
but it's, the TIF money has been unstructured and keeps getting restructured. So it's not. Okay, anyways,
5 minutes.
okay.
Okay,
I wanna quick, in the last 5 minutes, cause you guys are waiting on some recommendations from committee members. When's the next time you're in front of the commission on this?
Right now, it's not scheduled, but we could get on an admin meeting.
When do you wanna have
So,
recommendations from? Can we talk about this again next month
So-
or?
Latest would be next month, we'd have to come up with a decision and then we would be scheduled for like the admin meeting right after that.
Okay.
Because to get the rates into the final budget, we have to be in there early August. Maybe.
I don't feel like, my assessment of the room is that I don't feel like the four of us, we are missing Joan, can make like a motion that we recommend or unrecommend. I know I'm not comfortable with that, but I would like taking the time just for the four of us to give our brief yes or no, what you're pro hourly and permit. So these are soft
Need our
recommendations from
amendments.
committee members on your rate increases. I've changed my mind. I am pro increasing hourly. I am against decreasing permit for this year. And I am interested in increasing enforcement hours and days would be my, as a committee member, where I am leaning.
increasing hourly to which thing?
I don't really wanna increase hourly, but
Go big or you wanna go home?
I
Provided
want
not
to
for-
go small. What are yours?
fine, you ready?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I would like to look at including Saturday as an enforcement day. I'm okay with increasing the permit because it's a full year away. But I think the bigger issue is there's a really, I would like to know what, I would like a schedule or I would like a proposal for how you're gonna handle all these public relations issues that have been discussed and are coming up, because that's really half the
What
problem.
about hourly for you? Did you say, you had pro permitted? Hourly,
I'm saying we're gonna make it up by going,
so let's keep hourly as a
days.
thing. I'm just,
Yeah.
just on my own, hourly, you're not changing the hourly, you're
yeah,
changing the work.
just going 6 days.
I would support, I think I like the idea of Saturday as well. I do support the increase for, the permit and also hour. And maybe Seth, we could give your phone number for those.
Yeah.
Help educate them. We'll take shifts on Saturdays.
We'll get you guys a booth.
Yeah. Throw the tomato, yeah.
You guys can, man, I do something.
Okay, Sandy.
I'd say not on the permit. I could live with $1.25 hourly if I had to, as long as it's all the same. I think we look at the TIF money and some places to get some money for a year. And get things going and cleaned up, and then we go to bid, we go to places and then say, okay, the reality is we're gonna have to change things, prices have to go up. You have to also remember, merchants like me, we have the unknown of the TIF, of the tariff tax coming down. So, probably all of us have it in our different ways, but we're gonna get nailed with 10 or 20% buying product to turn around and resell, so my customers are also gonna get hit. They're gonna pay more for their product. Remember, we're all, a lot of us are discretionary income businesses. And there's a point where that discretion is gonna go, we're not going down there anymore because we can't afford it.
Yeah.
There's cheaper places to buy stuff we have downtown. So are we pushing, so I would say, if we had to, I'd go pro hourly, not permit at this point, just because that's our backbone.
Because it's the business.
Yeah, Saturday, you're just gonna piss a lot of people off. And you're gonna have to manage it. And again, it's like, there's so many changes going on in the world. and everything else right now, adding one more. Like you said, pull the scab off, like, oh, by the way, come to farmer's market and we're gonna charge you to be there. You know,
Isn't that only on Sundays?
no, Saturday.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, people, it's a different client on Saturday than it is on a weekday. It's a different customer. And they're spending more money, they're spending more time. In a lot of ways. Because it's easy shopping, you don't have to worry about things, so. I just think if we can figure a way to make some money using the TIF grant. For this year and just kind of get us so we're not completely in the hole, but we're looking forward to. What we need to do, and we know we're gonna have to need to increase rates, we know that's gonna happen. Somewhere, but it doesn't have to be this year. So we all have different things, so. yeah,
Is there
no,
a
no, I agree.
end rate, out of curiosity? I know we're 1 minute over, but.
We do what we want.
15
And
cents.
so I thought about that, yeah, if you look at a Saturday, it'd be, yeah, we're still charging, but it's only 50 cents an hour on Saturday. We could, we have to just do a little bit of math, you know,
We're still-
this is where some of the travel data that, I don't remember if that's the idea or if that's.
Calorie.
The travel data would come in handy to see what's, you know, what do the trips look like on a Saturday, and if we went down, would it still generate roughly the same amount of money it does on a weekday? So. Is all, at the end of the day, the bottom line is that whatever hours or days we add enforcement for. Has to cover the cost of enforcing that extra time.
If it's a break even, then it doesn't.
Yeah.
Break even,
Yeah.
makes people say.
Who's the math on that for the next?
Good math is what I do, see?
We could do that for the next one, okay, so, nope, sorry, you gotta say.
I like it to stay longer.
To, our last agenda item is the annual report recommendations. The ones that we have been talking about are residential districts and changes to rates. We'll talk about those two next month because we don't. I'm not there.
On the regular item?
I don't have to each regular item. I'm just, let me finish what I'm saying. That we're not voting on those, but those are two standing items that we may talk about again next month and vote on for public notice. Now, upcoming agenda items, I think all of these are ongoing. So I'm not gonna add anything new for July and
Just be residential and rates.
residential and rates,
That's
yeah.
perfect,
And I'm keeping TIF where it is. I mean, I feel like,
I
So
don't think we
basically
need
the
to,
same agenda for next month. I'll take off a couple of things that we
yeah,
talked
there's,
about.
yeah, I'll work with you, but.
well, we shouldn't have to do the website and that kind of stuff. I mean,
Now I'm gonna ask for public comment.
I cannot vote, but I am against hourly and pro raising permits. People with permits have money. Plain and simple, they're a dentist's office, they're a professional office, they have the ability to build it into their budget and take away from someplace else. I'm using VID as an example. When we do our budget, we think about what the permits might cost and rate increase, and we budget for that. So I do think people that buy permits that will be downtown can look at their personal finances and budget for that. However, I'm super against hourly because we have not gone a full year with $1 an hour rate. There's also, like Sammy says, I totally agree with everything she said about this is a great opportunity to increase our communication with the public, putting a better face forward, working on smaller projects, doing something good before raising rates. Because I understand raising rates need to happen eventually, but it does not need to happen now, especially since pinching pennies. I know I am. So Northwestern Energy increase has kicked my butt. And if I had to buy my own permit, I would not be coming downtown, and I love downtown. Our downtown is not growing as significantly as Kelly has said. I don't see that from my point of view. It is a struggle. You have vacant storefronts, and their rent is insane. So and they don't include parking in their rent. So trying to get these people to move their businesses downtown is what I'm currently doing. And the number one thing is rent and parking. I won people over with $1 an hour, and now to go back on that, and say actually it's $1.25. It is a little too much, too fast, in my opinion. There's things we can do before raising rates. That is, oh, and then I also want to address the pie comment. I've never gotten out of a ticket with pie. I was just wanted to say that I established a good relationship and we had good relationships with the parking attendant. He gave me a ticket when I gave him a pie one time. Cause I deserved it. I will always pay a ticket I deserve, but I will always put someone in their face if they gave me a ticket.
Thank you for your public comment. Did you have a motion?
Motion to adjourn, Madam Chair.
Yeah, this motion is to adjourn. Oh, was there any public comment? We never got anybody. A second for adjourning?
I second.
Seth adjourn, motions, roll call, Sandy.
I'm adjourned.
Christopher.
Awesome.
Aye, we are adjourned at 6:06
We can
PM.
have all of ours.
No,
David has.
Yeah, I brought